My coworker said I was a child predator for hiding mini rubber ducks around the office. Now she's refusing to work with me, and HR thinks I'm a liability. Oh boy, do I have a doozy. So last week I had a delivery of 100 little ducks. You know, the kind that people leave around their friends' houses when they're on holiday. My work is going through a tumultuous time right now, and I thought it might boost morale or at least give a little reprieve from the negativity for 5 minutes. So I dotted these ducks around for people to find, and it went down a treat, with people even re-hiding the ducks for other coworkers the next day. People were laughing and talking about it for a couple of days. Even the directors found a couple. They were a bit bemused but left us to it. Then one of the directors made a comment that without his glasses he assumed they were sweets that had been left out, and he was glad he took a closer look before trying some. Then my problem colleague overheard this and made the comment that I was grooming both children and men with ducks. So, office fun equals me being a child groomer. So, reported to HR, but I think I'm ready to move on to a different company now. Edit. So, I had a meeting with my manager this afternoon, and I will be raising a formal grievance against this problem coworker. Then in the comments section, one user said, "So I'm desperately trying to figure out what dots they thought they were connecting to make that conclusion. There's gotta be more than they're convinced is related to this. Ducks equals grooming? The confusion is strong." So, after everyone went silent following her comment, she was trying to explain that it was like I was luring children with sweets, but with ducks, even though our office is 18 plus. Not entirely sure how she jumped to that, but as said, she is the problem coworker. She's not happy unless she has insulted somebody. Also, later that afternoon, I had brought it up to my manager, and she tried saying it was the kind of joke she would make with her husband on the sofa. Had to say that I'm not her husband, I'm not even her friend, I am her work colleague in a professional setting. How often do they joke about that sort of stuff for it to feel so normal for her? Then user 2 commented and said, "OP, you should put an obscenely large number of ducks on that person's desk." So, I didn't hide all 100 of them, I still have a few left. Might have to do that the next time in the office. Then user 3 commented and said, "It sounds like the problem coworker is trying to start a situation to get rid of you. Be careful." Thank you, and I've reported her for other things in the past. One time she made a comment like, "You're so fat that you should be dead," and other comments, so I have a trail with HR already. Then user 4 commented and said, "Oh man, that B word. OMG, you're calmer than I am. I'm pretty sure I would say something awful as a knee-jerk response before I could remind myself that I'm at work." They are usually in the middle of other conversations, so I'm usually left reeling a bit, and then she gets up and flounces away 9 out of 10 times straight after. Then OP replies to another commenter on why his coworker hasn't been fired yet and said, "I think the problem is, nobody reports it. She makes nasty comments to everyone, but I think everyone feels the same that it's just one comment. What will reporting it even do?" She's also not silly. She has only slipped up and insulted me in front of others a handful of times. 2 years worth of insults mostly when we were alone together. Our reception team pulled me aside to ask some questions a few weeks ago, and I did answer them, and I also asked them why didn't they ask the problem coworker as it's actually her area, not mine, and they felt that she would give them grief for not knowing. I told my manager what they had said to me, and she went down to talk to them about it, but they didn't mention the problem coworker, and instead said they just grabbed me because they saw me. It's amazing one person can create such a fear culture about themselves. Then user 5 said, "OP, do not leave over this idiot. Your workplace needs you and your ducky joy over them. I think you should pursue some sort of defamation case against them. They have no right to put this on your name with no proof to it." Thank you. I appreciate that. And I try to make work a bit more fun. If I've got to spend 8 hours with these people, I'm gonna want them to be happy. And I have a meeting with HR tomorrow, so we will see where they are willing to go with this first. Then user 6 said, "Okay, so it's definitely been decided that your coworker is mean and crazy. Can we talk about the ducks, please? I've never heard of this before, and I'm intrigued. Also, what do Jeeps have to do with it?" So, Jeep owners leave little rubber ducks on other Jeep owners' cars. There's a Facebook group on it, and it's a cute little community thing. The hiding ducks was a trend on TikTok a couple of years ago. The ducks are tiny, under a centimeter big, and you are meant to hide them both in plain sight and in silly places. One duck made its way into one of our director's offices and in his empty coffee mug. Then user 7 commented and said, "Are you a gay man by any chance? I'm trying to figure out if they're applying some kind of homophobic interpretation to your actions. You know, with you trying to groom all of them, men and the children. So no, I'm a straight female. However, she is transphobic and homophobic. She doesn't make outward comments about that, but one of my brothers is gay and the other is trans. Whenever I mentioned them, she is unhappy. And then finally, user 8 commented and said, "Well, every accusation is a confession, as they say." Yeah, it does feel that way. Most times she's insulted me, it's because she is insecure of something and will take it out on me. For example, her doctor told her to lose weight. That was the day she told me I was so fat I should be dead. She was told she has high cholesterol, so she took my tea out of my hands and wouldn't allow me to put sugar in it because I was unaliving myself. She was reprimanded at work for wearing flip-flops and vest tops to the office, so she insulted my clothes. The list goes on and on. Not sure how child grooming fits into it, though. Small update. So, I spoke to the director yesterday and he was a sweetheart and made me feel a lot better about the whole situation. I think I'm going to continue with a grievance, and at least then in the future, her nastiness will be taken as evidence. He did say that while vile, he doesn't think it's a sackable offense yet, but did also say the only thing he was aware of at the time of the conversation was that she had called me a child groomer. None of the history, so it will be investigated full if I raise the grievance. And this has brought up conflicting feelings, as I don't want to de-escalate or her to lose her job, I just don't want to be insulted in the workplace anymore. Then one user commented and said, "Well, at least you've got a lot of witnesses, OP. If she's truly disliked in your workplace as the problem colleague, then they will probably back you up." Yes, so I spoke to one of the ladies today. The grievance form makes you state the witnesses, and I wanted to make sure they were comfortable with me putting them down, and she was lovely and said she would support in any way that she could. Update, 3 weeks later. So, it has been 3 weeks since my coworker called me a child groomer, and my manager called us into a meeting where I called out her poor behavior over the past 2 years. Since then, I have not heard or spoken to my coworker. She ignores any work-related message and is refusing to come into the office. She's working from home, although I can't see that much work is being done. She has recently asked a department that I have been working closely with if she can join them in their office if she has to come into work. HR has asked us if we would both be willing to attend mediation. I said yes. I am not sure what my coworker's response was, but since it was due to start this week and is not, I assume she refused it. And I was going to raise a grievance over this, but I was invited to a job interview at a company that I had previously applied for and was offered the job. So, contract signed and notice handed in. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Oh, OP, if they ask, are you going to mention how they botched this incident and that's what inspired you to look elsewhere? And congratulations." Oh, of course. My work does exit interviews, so this will all be brought up. Then OP provides more information and said, "So, I hid little ducks around the office. She joined in, had a great time. 2 days later, she called me a child groomer. I was upset as I was groomed as a child, which anyone could work out considering how old I was when I had my first child. She has my date of birth on our central system, and our children are the same age. So I went to my manager upset, and she called us into a meeting together. The coworker walked in and immediately mocked me for being upset because she was only joking. I got even more upset and called her out on her behavior. There isn't a week this woman doesn't insult or belittle me in some way. Then when asked what the hell she thought was similar to child grooming, she said it was like I was luring children with sweets but with ducks in an office that is full of 18+ people. And just to add, while I am the most frequently insulted/belittled by her, she does do it to the other staff too. A colleague in another department has just told me she reached out to the problem coworker asking for help with a task yesterday and got a very passive-aggressive response back. Her question was answered, but she was made to feel stupid. She did read the email responses out loud to her bank of desks. The head of HR was sitting opposite of her at the time. Lots of tuts, but nothing else. Then user 2 commented and said, "I'm sure you know this, but your coworker should have been fired on the spot. You can let them know in your exit interview that if this same coworker continues to spread accusations about you in this workplace, they will be liable for allowing it to go on." Oh yeah, she should have. The fact she didn't and multiple people also heard and reported it and still she didn't and still hasn't faced any repercussion and is instead breaking our hybrid/working agreement, etc. It was time to leave. The new job is set up with a better pay and better hours, so at least I have that going for me. Then user 3 said, "I'm constantly amazed at companies like this. I'm over here wondering, will I be laid off if I don't adhere to the ever-changing rules? And then there are companies that bend over backwards to accommodate a poorly performing person who then just refuses to come in." Yeah, there seems to be one rule for the problem people and one rule for the rest of us. I don't think I would get away with insulting people like that, especially to superiors. And then finally, on a happier note regarding the ducks, it's such a small but fun thing to do. I know it wouldn't work in most offices, but for the people I had planned it for, it went down as a treat. It is a work friend's big birthday in a couple of weeks, and she missed out on the ducks and was disappointed about it, so we are planning a little scavenger hunt throughout our local high street for her. She's a well-known resident, and ending it at her favorite restaurant. I'm planning on little envelopes with clues and a little duck in each envelope too. New update 2 months later. So it's been 3 months since my coworker accused me of grooming children because I made up an office scavenger hunt. I'm afraid this isn't a very exciting update and not much has happened between me and the problem coworker. Also, a few comments have asked for ages. She is mid-50s and I am 30. We are both married. So, just over a month ago, me and problem coworker spoke over Teams. I apologized for losing my temper following the child grooming comment, and she apologized for how I took the child grooming comment. The problem coworker then stated that she will not communicate with me again, as she does not know how I will react to her comments, and is now worried for my mental health. She has previously mocked my self-harm scars and called me an attention seeker, and we've had no further contact. Then HR set up a mediation meeting with a union. We had to have individual one-on-one meetings and then an all-day meeting with us together with the mediator. My individual meeting was non-eventful. I outlined everything that happened and said that I felt mediation was just the company's tick-box exercise to prevent me from claiming constructive dismissal and show that they had taken a responsible step to prevent conflict. The mediator said he could not respond. He did pressure me that I needed to hear out her side, and she was very apologetic and upset about all of it. I then had to explain a situation with a temp hire where PC, problem coworker, shouted and insulted the temp. They then had an argument and problematic coworker cried, saying they didn't want to hurt people. And the next time they saw each other a year later, PC insulted her weight. I also brought up that the silent treatment now is another form of bullying, as I am being left out of key meetings and decisions, and it is affecting my work. We did not attend the mediation full-day meeting. Unfortunately, my dad passed away unexpectedly the week before. I had already arranged a DR's app because I had developed a facial twitch, and I don't want to go into TMI, but other unpleasant side effects. The DR originally signed me off for 2 weeks, but when I mentioned my dad had died, that weekend it was extended to a month, with the proviso that I have an additional meeting before the fit note ended in case I couldn't face returning to the company. I won't lie, that was the worst month of my life, and coming back to this mess was absolutely awful. I'm just so grateful that the doctors took me seriously, as my mom did not cope well, and we, my siblings, alternated staying with her until she was stable, which I wouldn't have been able to do without the month off. My parents live a 10-hour round trip away for me and further for my siblings. I originally had 2 weeks left of my notice period when I returned. On my first day back, my manager pulled me into a meeting to say that she and HR were worried about my mental health and wanted me to have a phased return to work, so asked me to work from home for the rest of the week. My final day was also moved up due to outstanding annual leave. So I was in the office less than 2 hours on my first day back before the first person approached me for help because they had been trying to work with problematic coworker, but she had been rude and dismissive. PC has applied for numerous internal jobs and has been rejected for all of them, one of which was the first person to approach me for help. So problematic coworker has continued to refuse all communication with me. I could see that she had a meeting with one of the directors, but aside from that, I'm not sure what else happened following the child groomer comments. As for me, I was very spoiled by office friends, and they made a fuss with a lovely lunch out on my final day and some thoughtful gifts. After lunch, I had my exit interview where I was asked why I left, would I consider coming back, how do I rate the company. It was not a fun meeting, and I was very critical of HR and the company. I did state that had problematic coworker been handled properly from the start, I wouldn't have considered leaving the company. So, I'm a week free of that company now, and my facial twitch has already stopped. There might be further sightings of problematic coworker as I work part-time for a sister company, and they have not managed to find a replacement for me, so I will have to continue in that role until a replacement is found, but there will not be a need for us to communicate. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, OP, I'm so sorry for your loss of your father, and your problematic coworker also seems to have mental health issues. I'm not excusing that behavior though. There is no excuse for bullying. And I know you've gone over this a million times in your head and with others, but do you see how she dropped a bomb, then pitifully offers, I'm sorry you took that for a bomb? But if others heard it, the word was out. She is the nut, and I am so glad you have extricated from that place. Take good care. Yes, I do think she has some mental health issues. She is at the least bitterly unhappy with how her life has turned out. And yes, that is what happened. A lot of incidents I've mentioned in previous posts have been one-on-one, but the later ones were said and done in front of colleagues. I had 2 colleagues reach out and also provide a statement to HR following the grooming comments. And then finally, user 2 commented and said, "Well, may your problematic coworker step on all of the Legos, and hopefully you, OP, will never have to see her again. I hope this new job is excellent too." Thank you. I'm really excited to have this chapter of my life behind me. So, this is the part where I give my opinions. I don't really have any. Every now and then, I've just got nothing to say. I feel like the story was told kind of like in parts, like part of it over here, part of it over there. But the general gist of it is her coworker is crazy and made really horrible accusations over rubber ducks. And I still don't know what logic led her to make that conclusion, but mental illness was probably a factor in that equation. But you know what? To focus on the positives, as I always try to do, she has a new job. She'll never see the coworker again, hopefully. Never has to talk to her. And her facial twitch thing is also resolved. So that happened, and then it stopped happening. So that's pretty good. But anyway, comment what you think. We're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.